2011. The final was 2011. Since 2011, 2012 out in the group phase. The group was almost the same group as we had this season. Benfica, Basel and Galati from Romania. Out in the group phase. In 2013...
He's an idiot. That is what people have been saying about José Mourinho for years. Not strangers, not rival fans from other clubs, his own players. The men he personally selected, personally signed, personally trusted with his tactics and his reputation. 7 of them made this list. 7 professional footballers who went from being chosen by one of the greatest managers in history to being publicly destroyed by him. And when Mourinho decides you are the enemy, he does not pull you aside quietly, he burns you. In press conferences, in dressing rooms, through the back pages of newspapers, and sometimes through your own phone at midnight. This is the complete list. 7 players, 7 wars, 7 moments that revealed exactly what it costs to end up on the wrong side of the special one. We are counting down from number 7 to number 1, and number 1 is the controversy that stopped a Champions League match and shocked the entire world in February 2026. But first, let us be honest, José Mourinho is genuinely one of the greatest managers this sport has ever produced. 3 Premier League titles, 2 Champions League trophies, championships in Portugal, England, Italy, and Spain. He arrives at a club and transforms it within months. He creates a siege mentality unlike anything else in football. Us against the world, a tight circle, total trust inside the walls, 0 tolerance for anything outside. His players believe in it, they fight for it. Results come, trophies come. It works everywhere he goes. If you are already hooked on this video, hit the hype button right now. It costs nothing, it takes 2 seconds, and it tells me to keep going with stories exactly like this one. So the brilliance is undeniable. The problem is what comes with it. Because the same siege mentality that unites a squad always eventually turns inward. Someone inside the walls gets labelled the enemy. A player questions a decision, fails to match the image Mourinho holds in his head, and they become the target. And Mourinho's approach to a target is not silence or distance, it is public war. Through interviews, through the press, through team meetings, through messages sent night after night. The player gets humiliated, isolated, or forced out. Then Mourinho moves on, and the cycle starts again. 7 players went through it. Some fought back, some stayed silent, some left quietly and only spoke years later. Here is every story. Number 7. Henrik Mkhitaryan. For a long time, the real story stayed locked away. Everyone knew the swap deal. Mkhitaryan out, Sanchez in. January 2018. Done quickly, barely explained. But in 2025, Mkhitaryan released his autobiography. What he described was deeply unsettling. He called the environment at Manchester United under Mourinho grotesque. Not difficult, not demanding, grotesque. After 18 months of sustained public criticism and repeated exclusion, Mkhitaryan finally confronted Mourinho directly. Mourinho called him the S-word. Mkhitaryan told Mourinho he was an enormous piece of the S-word right back. 2 adults in a professional football environment, exchanging insults like strangers in an argument. Whatever working relationship existed before that moment was finished entirely. After the confrontation, Mourinho adopted total silence at the training ground. He would not speak to Mkhitaryan, would not acknowledge him, would pass him in the corridor without a word or a glance. At the training ground, it was complete silence. But that silence only lasted until the evening, because every night, without exception, Mourinho would open his phone and send the same message. Mickey, leave, please. Night after night, no variation, just the same words sent again and again, designed to wear the player down one notification at a time. As the January window arrived, the messages shifted focus toward the Sanchez deal. The nightly pressure had done its job. Mkhitaryan agreed and left the club. Mourinho got his man. Number 6. Paul Pogba. Few transfers have carried as much weight as Paul Pogba's return to Manchester United in the summer of 2016. £89 million. A world record at that point. A homecoming. A statement of ambition. Mourinho himself called Pogba a future captain. The optimism felt genuine. It did not last 2 full seasons. The first serious crack appeared when Pogba travelled to Miami for hamstring rehabilitation with full permission from the club. A photographer captured images of him out with his wife. Mourinho saw the photos and forwarded them straight to Pogba's agent Mino Raiola, with a message implying the player was on holiday while his teammates were grinding through pre-season work. Pogba was training 3 times a day and pushing hard to return to fitness. His manager was using a single photograph as evidence of disloyalty. The trust between them cracked from that point and never recovered. By September 2018, Mourinho stripped Pogba of his vice-captaincy, not in private, in front of the entire squad at the training ground. A calculated public humiliation designed to strip the players standing in the one space where it hurt most. Then, in December, after a 2-2 draw with Southampton, Mourinho delivered his final verdict in the dressing room. He called Pogba a virus, killing the mentality of the good, honest people around him. A virus, spreading, infecting everything it touched. Mourinho was dismissed shortly after. That label followed Pogba for years, attaching itself to every dip in form. The weapon kept working long after the man who built it was gone. Number 5. Luke Shaw. There is a clear difference between being tough on a player and making that player feel fundamentally worthless as a person and a professional. Mourinho crossed that line with Luke Shaw at Manchester United, and he crossed it consistently, deliberately, in public, in front of millions of viewers over the course of many months. People inside the club noticed, and they were not comfortable with what they saw. It began with the football brain narrative. Mourinho started telling journalists and television audiences that Shaw had the physical attributes of an elite left-back, but lacked the mental capacity to execute tactical instructions independently. Not a one-off remark, a repeated message. This was a young man who had recovered from one of the most serious leg injuries in recent Premier League history, and his manager was publicly suggesting on a regular basis that he could not think for himself. Then came April 2017 and a match against Everton. Shaw played well and helped create a late penalty. In the post-match interview, Mourinho said it was Shaw's body with my brain. He claimed that because Shaw stood directly in front of him on the touchline, he had personally directed every movement during the match. Every press, every run inside, every overlap. All him, not Shaw, just a body carrying out instructions. Staff inside the club found it cruel and entirely counterproductive. People around the squad were visibly uncomfortable watching it happen. Then, in the summer of 2018, on a pre-season tour in the United States, Mourinho mocked Shaw's weight and compared him to television presenter James Corden, out loud, in front of others. Shaw rebuilt his career under different managers and became one of the best left-backs in England. But he later said he was clearly in Mourinho's head and that the level of obsession was strange. Strange is an extremely generous word for what it actually was. Number 4. Eden Hazard. Eden Hazard was the creative heart of Mourinho's second Chelsea spell. Brilliant, instinctive, nearly impossible to stop in full flow. Mourinho built his attacking structure around Hazard and watched him help deliver the Premier League title in 2014 to 2015. But even with the trophy won, the friction had been building for over a year. The breaking point came following Chelsea's Champions League exit against Atletico Madrid in 2014. It was a painful defeat, and the atmosphere around the club was already tense. Hazard had questioned Mourinho's defensive approach publicly, and Mourinho hit back through the press immediately. He said Hazard was not ready to sacrifice himself 100% for his teammates, pointing directly to a defensive lapse during the build-up to Atletico's equaliser. In Mourinho's world, that was not a tactical issue. It was a character issue. Every player, no matter how gifted, must first function as a soldier inside the defensive system. No exceptions. Hazard could not fully become that. The relentless defensive demands began to take a visible toll. The following season, his form fell sharply. The player who had looked unplayable just months earlier appeared mentally drained. The two have since shared kind words about each other in public, and Mourinho even sent a message when Hazard was inducted into a Hall of Fame. But the underlying tension of that period exposed something essential and permanent about Mourinho's demands. The most creative, most gifted player in your squad is still a soldier first. That requirement never gets waived. Not for anyone. Not even for the one who wins you the title. Number 3. Ricardo Carvalho. If any player should have been protected from Mourinho's public anger, it was Ricardo Carvalho. Their history went back to FC Porto. Carvalho was one of Mourinho's first Chelsea signings in 2004. He was trusted, reliable, a natural leader in defence, and about as close to a genuine inner circle central figure has existed in any Mourinho squad. None of it offered any protection. In the summer of 2005, Carvalho expressed frustration at being rotated out of the starting lineup for a match against Wigan Athletic. He did not go to the press, he did not cause a scene. He simply questioned a selection decision in private. That was the entirety of his offence, and Mourinho's public response was to suggest that Carvalho appeared to have problems understanding things, and then recommend the defender take an IQ test, or perhaps consider visiting a mental hospital. An IQ test for the man who crossed borders to follow Mourinho and win trophies alongside him. His only offence was asking a question about a team selection.
The message delivered to every other player in that dressing room was brutal and crystal clear. No loyalty, no history, and no shared achievement will protect you if you challenge the authority. Nobody is exempt. Nobody gets a pass. Not even the ones who came first. Number 2. Iker Casillas. Iker Casillas was not simply a goalkeeper at Real Madrid. He was San Iker, captain of the club and of the Spanish national team, loved across generations. And to Mourinho, all of that standing made him a potential obstacle that needed to be neutralised. When Mourinho arrived in 2010, he quickly identified the senior Spanish players as a group whose loyalties could not be fully guaranteed. Their connections ran deeper than any single club. Casillas maintained a close personal friendship with Barcelona's Xavi, built through years of international duty with Spain. To Mourinho, that friendship was soft treason, a crack in the wall, proof that Casillas belonged to something beyond the siege. The accusations arrived very publicly. Mourinho labelled Casillas a mole, claiming the goalkeeper was leaking sensitive information to the media through his partner, journalist Sara Carbonero. No solid evidence was ever produced, but the accusation was loud, repeated, and did exactly what it was designed to do. It divided the Real Madrid fanbase. Some supporters began calling their own captain Topor, a mocking combination of the Spanish words for mole and goalkeeper. A man who had dedicated his career to this club, now mocked by its own supporters because his manager had decided he was the enemy within. In December 2012, Casillas was dropped for a match against Malaga in favour of Antonio Adan. A hand injury then gave Mourinho the opening to sign Diego Lopez, who was kept as first choice, even after Casillas returned to fitness. The dressing room atmosphere deteriorated severely. Senior players, including Sergio Ramos and Pepe, turned against the manager. A reported ultimatum eventually reached the club's president himself. Either Mourinho leaves or the captains leave. That stark. Mourinho left that summer, and one of the finest goalkeepers in the history of the game had been branded a traitor inside the club he had given everything to. Number 1. Vinicius Jr. February 2026. Champions League playoff first leg. Benfica against Real Madrid at the Estadio da Luz. Mourinho in the home dugout back in Portugal. And within 90 minutes, he was at the centre of a controversy that went far beyond football itself. Vinicius scored for Real Madrid and celebrated near the Benfica supporters. The referee issued a booking. During the confrontation that followed, Vinicius reported to referee Francois Letexier that Benfica midfielder Gianluca Prestiani had called him mono, monkey. The anti-racism protocol was immediately activated. The match stopped for over 10 minutes. Players from both sides gathered on the touchline as tensions flared. The world was watching every second. Mourinho chose to publicly blame Vinicius. He said the celebration was a provocation. He said something wrong always seems to follow Vinicius, that incidents occur in every stadium where he plays. He implied, in front of a global audience, that the player who had been racially abused had contributed to his own abuse. Anti-discrimination organizations condemned the comments immediately. Federico Valverde of Real Madrid spoke out publicly in defense of his teammate. Kylian Mbappe confirmed he personally heard the slurs and described the situation as a disgrace for the competition. The consensus was overwhelming. Mourinho had attempted to redirect the blame onto the victim. He was shown a red card during the match for protesting aggressively about a separate refereeing decision. Then came a touchline ban for the second leg. And in a moment that captured everything about this story, Mourinho refused the media booth reserved for him at the return fixture. He watched the second leg from a secret location. Reports suggested it was the team bus parked outside the Santiago Bernabeu. A manager who had ignited an international controversy around racism in football, watching his team get eliminated, hidden away on a bus, alone, absent from the consequences he had set in motion. That image says everything. The siege mentality at its most isolated. The walls built so high, the only space left inside them is a bus in a car park. Look at all 7 cases, and the pattern is unmistakable. The mole accusation, the virus label, the football brain shaming, the IQ test insult, the sacrifice demands, the nightly messages until someone broke. Different clubs, different decades, different players, same structure every time. Find the person who does not conform. Label them, destroy their standing. Force them out or grind them down. The mechanisms vary. The outcome never changes. Mourinho has won more than most managers will ever dream of winning. The trophies are real, and they are extraordinary. The tactical intelligence is real, and it is rare. Few people in football history have done what he has done at that level consistently. But alongside every title sits a player whose confidence was dismantled, a dressing room that fractured under the pressure, a relationship that ended in public humiliation and lasting psychological damage. Football can demand the highest standards, and it can be uncompromising and serious and relentlessly demanding, but it does not have to do it this way. The greatest squads in this sport were built on trust, on genuine belief in the people around you, on giving players the room to be who they actually are, rather than soldiers in a permanent war. As the game continues to move forward, players speak more openly, and the world watches more closely than ever before, the true cost of the scorched earth approach becomes impossible to hide behind the weight of trophies. The burned bridges never fully rebuild, and eventually, when you look around, there are none left to cross.